It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
What does the Wizard of Oz and our next guest, Gulnara Omar, have in common? Well, stick around, listen in, guaranteed you're going to enjoy this. But first, our land acknowledgement.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ga'aina, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Eahe Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
All righty, welcome to the show, Gulnara. How are you today?
Thank you, Kim. I'm doing wonderful.
Okay, did I say that correctly? Because
Yes.
that's a beautiful name, and I wanted to just you said just don't call me granola.
Yeah, just don't call me granola because that's how I've been called once when I just moved to Canada 23 years ago, and but it's okay. My name is different, and it means flower of fire. So
Flower fire, that's very cool. So you were like from the beginning destined to be to seek beauty, but to put passion behind it. Because that's, I'm seeing flower fire.
I love it.
I see passion, I see energy behind fire, but I see beauty in flowers. Is it, did I nail that?
You did.
Awesome.
So wow.
So I like that. I'm writing that down. That definitely describes you and all that you do.
Well, thank
so
you.
bring us up to speed. What do you do? Because you actually have a very kind of broad spectrum, but we're going to overview what you do, how that ties in, and then I want to dive into your upcoming book because I think this is very important for us to talk about so that people can find leadership in all spaces.
Yes.
What do you do?
Well, I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I'm an empowerment coach. I write books, and I'm passionate about empowering people, in particular women, because I moved to Canada as a single mother with 2 sons, and I know what it's like to be alone in a foreign country and making all the efforts to thrive and to be a mother and to be a friend and to be connected to your family, to your country, and then building a new life in a new country and trying to contribute because I love Canada so much. I remember how I just first arrived as a single mother and I saw some dollars in my bank account as a single mother from the government of Canada, and I haven't done anything for this country. And imagine how I felt. People believed in me. People give me space.
Seen.
And even though I was a single mom, I didn't have jobs. I came from a great oil and gas background in Kazakhstan, and I came here and I couldn't find jobs because English wasn't my asset anymore. I was an administrative worker in oil and gas. I was in big fields. I was working even with the president of Kazakhstan, translating in some technical meetings. So, and I came here and I felt like nobody because English was no longer an asset for me. I had 2 boys who needed food. So I started studying coaching, and at that time it was a very young industry.
Yeah, that would have been 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
okay.
and it was on the phone only. And in the meantime, I was cleaning houses because that was a great job for me to be able to do physical work. And I had this foam headsets, if you remember, and during cleaning toilet seats, I was listening about empowerment and relating to clients and all of that. So that was
and the
interesting
iPod
journey.
is actually the precursor to the podcast. That's how it got its name.
Exactly.
So I find that I can actually envision that.
Really?
Yes, I can actually envision that. So you're from Kazakhstan?
Yes.
Okay, I think you're the very first person I have personally met from Kazakhstan.
Woohoo.
So that's very cool. So you moved here with 2 boys. What was the goal of moving to Canada?
I felt that I reached my ceiling in Kazakhstan in terms of leadership roles, in terms of growth. I wanted a better future for my children. And when I grew up with my grandma, my mom left when I was 3, and I've never seen my father. So my beginning was very tough. And that's one of my messages to people, that you don't have to have very favorable beginnings to succeed in life. Quite on contrary, the more you struggle, the more you grind, the more you persevere, the more great strength and self-belief you develop as you grow up as an adult, right? So when I asked my grandma when I was 17, I said, I want to go and learn English. And she said, why do you want to learn English? I said, because I want to speak to more people in the world. I want to share. I didn't know what I was going to share. I just love people. And now I speak English, one of the most spoken languages in the world.
They say it's actually one of the most difficult to learn also because every word has like 5 meanings until you get the young kids in, and then all of a sudden that word has a whole new meaning. I guess that English itself is very subjective based on the conversation.
And the way you pronounce it. I remember my kids were going to sports here, and I would go and cheer for them. Guys, you're winners. And it's like, Mom, we're not winners, we're winners. There's these or this winners or winners. Or it's like, it's tough, Kim. It's tough.
I'm from Kansas. I grew up in somewhat, you can hear my, just even wrapping my tongue or around Gulnera to make sure it comes out properly is so counterintuitive to the hillbilly language that I learned at, 5, 8, because I washed my clothes, I have a cement pad, we got a roof up on the house, right? So these are all how my tongue rolls. So I can't even fathom, and I tried learning Spanish.
How did it go for you?
Not so good. I know a few curse words. I learned all the kitchen language. That's because I was a waitress.
Easy, right?
I learned all the kitchen language. Okay, so I do have a question. Psychotherapist. What is the difference between a psychotherapist and like a therapist or a psychologist? What is that difference? Can you just break that down for us?
It's pretty much the same. Psychotherapist, therapist, counselor. There's a big difference between psychotherapists and psychiatrists.
Because that's the medical.
Yeah, I'm not trained to prescribe. But for psychologists, in some provinces, you have to have PhD. For psychotherapists, it's sufficient for me to have master's degree and be a part of an association in any province of Canada.
Awesome. So we're talking masters. This isn't just something like many coaches where you can just say I'm a coach, right? This is okay. So let's talk about the empowerment angle, right? We know that that's a word that has gotten really huge, just like resilience. Like when we take a look, the pandemic was a huge shift in a lot of our language, how we communicate, all of that. And empowerment is one of those words that I see used on a regular. What does working to empower others mean to you? How does that show up in your profession?
I love the depth of your questions. Well, the way it shows up in my profession is how I can easily and quickly discern and see in people where they lack power. And in different people, it can show in different ways. I used to work in the United Arab Emirates with Emirati women who are covered, and their empowerment is different. The young generation is very strong now. A lot of women come from Stanford and Harvard, and not just because they have the money, they're very intelligent. And certain things, I was able to empower them, but when they go back to their traditions, certain things I couldn't. But it's not my place. I just needed to help them to get from one level to another. When I talk to North American woman, a client of mine, and she says, I want to get promoted, how do I do that? I use different tools of empowerment, for example, where she can speak up, where she can do other things. So culturally, I have to be careful where I go to different cultures, because I worked in Qatar, I worked in UAE, I worked with European people and in different parts of the world. But ultimately, as you said earlier, people want to be seen, heard, understood. We all want our parents to be healthy, our children to be happy. We want to be loved. We want to be nurtured. We all want the same thing. Like Shakespeare said, if you cut my hand, blood, the same color blood will be shown, right? So empowerment consists to me of three pillars. One is self-efficacy. It's called confidence in simple words. Confidence to do things and believe that you are capable of doing these things. Self-belief. Second is resourcefulness. It's not only having resources, but also seeking. Because some people say, well, there's not enough help out there. There's no enough grants. There's no enough resources. The world is so difficult. There's so much animosity. So if you have that attitude, it's hard to be resourceful because you believe in lack versus resources, right? And instantly your mindset closes down the possibilities. And most of people in the deathbed, they regret that they didn't go for possibilities, for new opportunities, because they didn't believe that actually the world is so loving and giving, and it's all what we perceive. And the last one is courage, being brave. When you're courageous, you're able to do a lot of great things, and you have to develop that step by step, bit by bit, right? So if you have these three pillars, it's more likely you can achieve so many things in life. But if you always want to do things perfectly, and you don't feel you're perfect enough, you will not feel resourceful because you'll be scared to ask for help because you're scared of rejection, right? I don't want to ask for help because people think I'm not perfect, I'm weak, I don't have enough knowledge. If you try to be too perfect, you cannot be courageous because you don't want people to ridicule, to laugh at you. Because courageous takes that quality of being okay with being imperfect, being different, being unique, and celebrate that.
To me, this sounds a lot like the lessons from The Wizard of Oz. Glinda the Good Witch said, but the answers were always within you. Mm-hmm. And she was on a quest for heart, for brain, and for courage. Ah. And so when you're saying this, it seems like this has been a constant thought process out there, mm-hmm. right? So we are aware that these are the things that we need. What is the value for somebody when they engage with a psychotherapist, when they engage in a coach, an empowerment leader? What is the value to the individual to help them accelerate, to find this path?
Well, I think the biggest value in my personal case, because I do have a coach, and she's much younger than me, and she challenges me. I have a mentor, and they challenge me a lot. And I see how my clients grow when I hold the mirror, because we all need a mirror to show this is where you are, and this is what is stopping you. And let them speak and be in a sounding board, because by the time they finish their monologue, they're like, oh my God, I am standing in my own way. Why am I letting this childhood trauma stop me? I'm self-sabotaging over and over. That's why first I took coaching profession, and I spent all my savings that I brought from Kazakhstan in seven months. I spent them all, but my clients used to self-sabotage so much, and I wanted to know why. And my coaching certification wasn't sufficient to help them break through this self-sabotage tendency. What is the trauma? And I realized that our childhood traumas, Kim, they stop us from succeeding in any area of life. Because how we do anything is how we do everything. It's not just love life or health, it's work. If leaders didn't have good childhood, they will have a very destructive way of leadership. They will not promote, they will not praise, because they don't praise themselves. They will be a workaholic, and they will expect people to be workaholics. Childhood traumas, they haunt us for the rest of our lives. That's why counseling is important for everyone. Unfortunately, female clients are more frequent in my practice than male, because men, they're they don't want to spend on themselves. Sometimes first is ego, and second, they're scared of emotions.
Yeah.
And they think if they
Because
come...
we've stigmatized that.
Exactly.
Right? And
Exactly.
men are not as verbal. As a mother of two boys, and I have two
Absolutely.
boys and a girl, I have personally firsthand seen the difference between their early verbal skills and the difference in the strengths. Like my boys could lift and run and take off all sorts of things. They were very physically adapted at a very early age, whereas my daughter, also she's dyslexic. But her vocabulary was huge and expansive by the time she was 5, right? Whereas the boys were still kind of, honestly, a little bit, out beating things, hauling around. And we always joked and called them like Bam Bam from the Flintstones. So I would love to leave our audience with some an actionable step. I always like them to have that before we move on to your book that's coming out, which I think is going to be just an awesome gateway. And that's what books are, folks. These are gateways. These are opportunities for you to determine if this is a right fit or not, if this is somebody that can help lead you to your next level of greatness. But I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to put you totally on the spot, folks. So, folks, we have not practiced any of this, but I know you're going to nail it. What is one practice or step that we, in general, can do around self-efficacy, like building our confidence? What's one thing we can do?
Well, I have a toolbox of things, but with one thing, you challenge me, Kim. What I would say, what I usually do when I feel less confident or I have that negative voice, that my inner judge is so loud and my inner advocate is so quiet, I need to raise my inner advocate. And my first book was about inner child. And I imagine that inner little girl, little Gulnara, sitting next to me and what she needs from me right now. Because we tend to focus on others and tend to help others, but I sit her down in front of me and I talk to her the way I would talk to the most important person in the world. And I would even apologize for not believing in her. And I would think about all the great things she's done. And I would cry with her and I would hug her. And I would say, you know what, this is temporary. This is temporary. Because we worry about things and we become so sad and our energy goes down because we think it's permanent and it's not going to be fixed. We catastrophize things. And for me to give her that hope and say, look, you've done so much already, and bringing that focus on her achievements and saying, you've done so much. Don't give up yet. And my favorite saying is that if you want to give up, just rest, but don't quit.
Rest. I totally giving yourself grace. You got to give yourself grace, because if you don't give yourself grace, nobody else is going to do it for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
I love that. The grace is such a graceful word.
Yeah. It's my favorite thing is give yourself grace and the space you may need today. I just that is so huge. Like I said, when we were talking, I was not feeling well on Friday afternoon. And instead of pushing myself and doing all the things I thought I should be doing, I literally gave myself a sleep reprieve. I let my brain and my body take the moment it needed to, I don't know, whatever was going on.
And look at you now. You look.
I showered.
You have no trace of being low in energy because you've given yourself what you needed. You've honored yourself.
Okay, resourcefulness.
Yeah.
You just did an episode on AI recently, and I think that when we think resourcefulness, part of it is digging deep, right? But also seizing the things around us. What are 3 things that you've seen that all of us, in whether we're entrepreneurs or and quite frankly, if you're an at-home mom, you are the most underpaid entrepreneur out there, because that's a hard job. I tried it for a very short time and I could not do the at-home thing. I have huge hats off. So if you're an at-home parent listening to this, do include yourself in that entrepreneur space, or whether you work for a corporation. what are 3 things that these people should be doing or looking for or engaging in to level up that next level? Because you spoke earlier about a woman wanting to get a raise, right? So
Yeah.
what are 3, give me 3 things that you think are really cool out there that we should be leveraging or leaning into for resourcefulness?
Well, excellent. In order to be resourceful, we need to be open-minded, right? Because resources are out there and we don't know about them. And if we do the same thing, we'll get the same results. And AI is one of the greatest resources out there if we let them come into our life and embrace them with open mind. I'll give you an example. I had a client with ADHD, and a poor young man, he couldn't start. He would leave things last minute, procrastinate all the time. And this is also one of the symptoms of perfectionism. And AI was a great tool for him because he said, at least it gave me some leverage. I did some prompts. Give me the outline of my proposal. And he gave him 12 steps. And he said, oh my God, I feel so hopeful.
Totally, yes. It gives you that start.
You agree?
Yes, I 110% agree. 110% agree. What's another thing? So we've got AI, so when we're looking resourcefulness, what are 2 other things people can do to optimize their level of performance no matter what they're doing?
Is looking for help outside, knowing that help is there and people are willing to help. It's the mindset. Because if you don't believe it, you will have fear to go out there, especially if you have childhood trauma of being abandoned or avoidance personality disorders. Sorry, I'm taking it to psychotherapy sometimes because I know how traumas affect us in success.
Well, and we're dealing with a very traumatized world right now.
Totally.
The world basically, yes, I know. We can all, like, I have people tell me, don't look at this and don't look at that. You have to be aware of what's coming so that you can navigate from, right? You can't.
Absolutely.
I can't just put my head in the ground and nothing's happening in the Middle East. I can't put my head in the ground and there's not a political race going on. I can't put my head in the ground and know that my oldest child is not, I'm not looking at his financial struggles with his family. So, but I also have to be able to ensure that I'm not getting consumed by it. So I become traumatized, secondary trauma from everybody else's trauma, right?
Absolutely.
So
I love how you said it. Because it's so easy to be secondary traumatized.
There's a lot of this secondary trauma going on.
Yeah.
If
If you expose yourself too much, we're humans. We are so interconnected. We live in the world of mirrors. We become that.
Yes.
We become that pain. We become that terrorism. We become that war. We feel pain of people. It's important to know so that we feel grateful what we have and we feel compassion for what people go through.
Yeah.
But also, in order to be resourceful, you need to be aware of your energy level, how you show up in the world. And if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you start watching these negative things, you're already depleted 60, 70%. But if you want to show up in your best self, with your clients, with your children, with your spouse, with your colleagues, with your team, you need to make sure you're in a resourceful state. And what it does for me in the morning, I don't show up unless I have my conscious shower, unless I have my yoga and I have my Tai Chi, I have my walk. I need to be outside at least 10 minutes. I need to read my book. And I know people say, well, it's too much time. But if you know how to condense it, and it's a habit, it's become my second nature. And waking up in the morning, because if you wake up before 6:30, your psychological, your psycho energy is much stronger. You receive more. Your cortisol, the hormone of stress, is actually developing in a way that you can easily get rid of it in the morning. If you wake up later, then you're not as resourceful. So all of this is so important. Yeah.
So I guess it's that, you remember the sponge theory? So the sponge theory, if your sponge is already full, it cannot absorb anything else, right? So if you're filling your sponge, right?
Yeah.
It still can wash counters down. But here's the beauty of a sponge, folks. If you keep your sponge full, you can clean things, you can navigate things, you can wipe things down, and you can always refill it. So it's constantly, that's kind of how I view my children, right? They were always my little sponges. And what can I pour into them? Now, they're not little anymore. I have grandchildren at this stage. But
for us, they're still always children.
They're always my
You'll
babies.
never retire from parenting role.
No, it's the greatest and hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So I want to wrap this up. Courage, and then we're going to dive into your book and what people can expect from your book. How's that sound?
Sounds amazing.
Okay, courage. What is one thing that you do to gain courage in the face of something that's really hard, something that pulls up, that is that trigger, right? We face this all the time. There's triggers all around us. It could be a news story that brings everything back. It could be going to the bank and seeing that you don't have enough revenue. It could be sitting working on a program and your computer crashes, right? What's one thing that you do to find the courage to move beyond the trigger?
Well, you just touched a very, very, how do I say it? Very important topic, parenting as a mother, because I can relate. And for me, children is the point of courage. On my planner, first page, I can show it to you, but that's okay. I have a big photo of my children when they were little. And for me, it's an indicator that if I can do it for myself, I can do it for my children. I brought them to this land of Canada. They don't have any relatives. I'm the only mom. They don't have, their father passed away. They don't have any relatives. And I know that children don't do what we tell them to do. They do what we're doing. And I am for them a role model. And this is my primary responsibility as a mother. And I don't want to burden them and ask for things. I want to give them light and energy by being who I am. For them to watch my program, to watch me on TV, to watch me running and working out and say, Mom, you're doing great. And when they don't worry about me, they have full capacity and full energy to do what they want to be. And this is a great, and different people find different things, because not all mothers have children. My two aunties who raised me, they're childless, but they find passion in helping communities. So I'm not saying that every mother, every woman should be a mother.
No, I hear what you're saying. So if you are operating, if your sponge is full, other people around you that you want to empower don't have to worry about filling you up. They can then model thereafter. So that's that whole thought leadership.
Yes.
Put forward what you want other people to gain from you. Does that kind of round that out? Like, did I get the right?
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
Well, so let's talk about your book. So you talk about Perfect Enough for Love, and this is, you have a couple books out, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
My first book is A Child and the Child Within, is about the inner child and our habits, financial habits coming from our parents.
Yeah.
And this one is more about love. And
all right. So what can the readers expect from this book, and when will they be able to get it?
Well, the main idea in this book is that you can be loved no matter what. And it's not only about romantic love. A big part of it is about romantic love and why single people remain single and don't go into relationship, because perfectionists are scared to be so close so that another person will see their flaws. And that's painful. But also how it shows in other areas of life, at work, with friendships, and why people are staying isolated, why they don't reach out, because they want to be perfect. And that's a very lonely place to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when is your book available, this new one?
Well, hopefully by the end of November, we're finishing the editing, and it's going to be out.
So just in time for Valentine's Day.
Right.
This is perfect.
Yay.
Perfect. Give yourself a gift. And that's Perfect Enough for Love by Gulnara Omar. Beautiful picture, by the way.
Thank you.
Beautiful picture. And I just want people to know that, take a moment and look up the definition of perfect. Definition of perfect is nowhere left to go, complete. And the only day a human being is ever fully complete and nowhere left to go is the day they're in the grave. So progress over perfection, babies. Progress over perfection.
I love it.
Be a progress. Be messy. But be something. Do something. I love this. I could sit here and do 2 hours on this conversation. Now, we do have members mixers here at the club. Are you ever able to come to some of the members mixers?
Yes, I was in one recently and I benefited so much. It was for women, and there were women from all walks of life and all corners of the world, international women, entrepreneurs, beautiful. And I love the energy. And thank you, Calgary Petroleum Club, for that opportunity.
Well, and
amazing.
If you guys want to actually meet Gulnara here or get a hold of her, we will have all of her contact information in the show notes. And hey, if you're in Calgary, come down to one of the club mixers and maybe you get a chance to meet this amazing woman. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Kim. I loved our conversation.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, calpeteclub.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.